All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are ready to go for session 2, and we are also live on YouTube. And so if you want to review these sessions again. All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are ready to go for session 2, and we are also live on YouTube. I did it again. Okay. So I am here with you. My name is Anne-Marie Diaz. I'm the program coordinator, care at the Family Resource Center, and I am joined by my lovely colleague, Miss Amber Calm, who is one of our parenting practitioners here at our agency. And we're going to get right into it for session 2 of Parenting the Digitally Safe Teen. And as always, you can feel free to put any notes or Q&A. We will either attend to it in real time or we will address it at the end. But feel free, we intend for this to be interactive, to feel like a workshop, that you're really getting something practical out of your time with us. So we're going to empower you with knowledge and information, and then really make a practical session of it. So feel free to get engaged. You can share as much or as little as you want. But of course, this is available on YouTube live, and it is in the public domain. So just to brief you on that. So our next slide, we're going to share a little bit about, outside of this wonderful workshop, what we do on a regular basis at the Family Resource Center.
We are a team of compassionate parenting practitioners offering confidential, strength-based individual parenting sessions. Convenient. Our appointments are set based on parents' convenience, targeting unique and diverse family needs and dynamics. We are professional. Our parenting programs are research and evidence-based programs designed to help parents achieve family goals and feel confident in their parenting choices. Our programs are fully funded by the Cayman Islands government for all parents raising children in the Cayman Islands. To learn more about the services offered, register today and be supported towards the happiest and healthiest family life possible.
Great. So that is us in a nutshell. Our focus is really on our parents and our families. We work providing individual parent coaching and creating collaborative goals with you as you see fit as the main expert in your child's life. And we have several parenting programs and family programs that cater to various family dynamics. As we know that no two families are the same. So we do offer quite individualized work. And so today, this is one of the things that we do, of course, is offering services such as this. And we're going into week 2. Our focus will really be on social media, mental health, and online identity as it pertains to our teens. Week 3 will go into online safety, cyberbullying, and risk prevention. And then for week 4, we will have building healthy digital habits and strong relationships. For those who may be attending that missed session 1, we'll also do a little bit of bridging and recap of what you may have missed, especially when it comes to the goals that we're trying to create as parents in our families' lives, and support you towards completing those successfully.
I think before you move on, Anne-Marie, the first 2 sessions are really about setting an understanding about what the landscape looks like, which is what we covered in the first session. And then today is all about the impact of social media on teens' mental health. So session 1 and session 2 are just really setting the foundation. And session 3 and session 4 is going to be a lot more about the practical strategies that you can implement to, improve media usage in your family, right? So with that being said, we're just going to dive right into session 2, impacts of social media on teens' mental health. So what we know is that when you're using social media, there are positives to it, and there are also the negatives. So starting off with the positives, teens can find a lot of social support online. So through the TikTok, the Instagram, any of the social media platforms, they're able to connect with people who may have similar interests, and especially in Cayman, there may not be I guess there may be some hard to reach communities because an example might be the anime community, right? Maybe your teenagers interested in that, but there may not be a lot of spaces where they can talk about that and share that love, right? So of course there is the ability to access social support online and community. There are also some really great social media pages that they can learn from. Um, like platforms, TikTok for sure. They have a lot of short videos, and I'm sure even me as an adult, I learn a lot from there. But of course, everything in moderation. And then the last one would be just increase well-being for vulnerable teens. Um, yeah, so of course, there's platforms or pages that can provide a lot of inspirational and supportive content for them that, again, they can tap into that community and that support. On the flip side, we know that there's a number of risks, right? So, of course, excess use can lead to anxiety and depression, lowered self-esteem. There can be difficulty with sleep. The sleeping habits can become very challenging. Um, there can be a lot of comparison with people that they see online because the reality is people are not posting the negative, right? It's always about making yourself look very pretty online and prestigious, but we don't tend to see a lot of the negative, right? So there can be a lot of comparison. And then, of course, the way that these platforms are designed nowadays is to just be easy to scroll, and they're very quick videos. So it can become very addictive, right? Um, there's also some other things that we have to consider. So fear of missing out, because kids are always online, they're always connected, and they always have access to this information. Not being online and the addictive nature of being online can lead to what we call FOMO, where children feel like, or teens feel like they're missing out on what's happening, right? So that can be a very that can be a major challenge.
Mhm.
Another risk that we'll see is kids um, feeling distracted from in-person interactions. So they're so accustomed to just again being connected online and being readily having information readily accessible that they're missing out on the in-person one-to-one connections, right? So we definitely want to recognize that yes, there are the positives, but the negatives can really overcome or kind of
Mhm.
outshine the positives sometimes. So I think
Yeah, and
today's
I
session is all about thinking of it as there has to be a fine balance, right?
absolutely. And I had a story I'd like to just share too. Working with a person not too long ago who we'd consider neurodivergent, and there were some social anxieties with coming into a space, and there was some work to be done there. So there was a comfort with my on who I am online, on WhatsApp, my status, the way I'm kind of curating how I look and how I engage with people online. It felt safer for this individual. And but there was work with, yes, this can be your kind of your safety, your comfort, but let's work gradually towards getting you outside of your comfort zone so that growth can really take place. And you can even use kind of the social media with that. Like, okay, so these people you're engaging with, if they're a safe community, maybe we can create an opportunity to hang out in IRL in real life, right? Let's go to the park this week. Let's go to Camana Bay and get some ice cream. It can be very informal invitation. So encouraging, and at least in my work, I was really encouraging them to branch out and kind of develop their social group
Yeah.
and practice a lot of those social skills. And so, as a parent, we're in an amazing opportunity to really support them in figuring that out and problem solving with them at their level that they're at now, and encouraging them to never just stay put, and baby steps towards what we want to see for them.
Yeah, I love that, Anne-Marie, because you're encouraging them to utilize it, right? It's an
Yeah,
advantage. You're just
yeah,
using it as a tool, and you're not just
yeah,
kind of using it as like your crutch of this is the only
right.
way that I know how to socialize, but I'm using it to socialize in real life and IRL, right? So
Yeah,
that's a beautiful balance right there.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
And I think it's very important to recognize that as one of the challenges is when teenagers are so accustomed to just socializing online, they're being robbed of an opportunity to develop those social skills of how do I connect with people? How do I network with people? How do I have quality in-person conversations, and how do I connect, right? How do I build relationships? Because yes, an online relationship looks completely different than an in-person relationship, right? You feel a lot more confident to say certain things online or to express yourself online, right? And I think that's a positive of being online, is that you can express yourself in so many different ways, through the posts, through the videos, through singing, whatever you want to do, right? But again, if you're only doing that online, you're being robbed of an opportunity to develop yourself in person and to showcase that in real life, right? Yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think the more we could go on and on about this, the positives and the negatives of social media, but I think the reality is, and what Miss Sutton Burke here says is that there has to be a balanced approach. So just reading what's on the screen, Sutton Burke of Infinite Mind Care stresses the importance of digital literacy and parental guidance in helping children navigate online spaces safely. She encourages a balanced approach to social media, emphasizing the need for open conversations and education to ensure young people use the internet responsibly. And I think that that just puts a perfect bow on what we're saying. It just has to be balanced. There's the positives, the negatives, but we need to know exactly what our kids are doing online and provide the appropriate guidance to teach them how to use it in a safe way, right? Because what we covered in our last session is that the social media world or the internet is constantly transforming. The digital landscape is transforming, and we're having to become a lot more dependent on it for so many things. It's not going away, so we have to adapt our approach to it, right? And I think it's just making sure that we're very balanced with that.
Mhm. And it can be guidance, definitely at this stage, them being teenagers. But if we have young children in our family too, we can set the stage of these are the digital rules, or this, and it can just, or it could just be these are the family rules, and the way in which we engage online is just a part of that. Or
Yeah.
it could be that in this family we make safe choices and we
Mm-hmm.
talk about that on a regular basis in the car rides, using really informal times over dinner and just reinforcing, asking the right questions. I think, as we had said last session, too, the best parenting strategy you have is continuing to have a very close relationship with your child so
Mm-hmm.
that there's that trust on both sides and you're being entered into one another worlds and really being able to increase their cooperation and following your leadership, and in what you expect of them, whether it's social media use or any other kind of behavioral expectation, right?
Yeah.
And
And
we're going
I think
into,
before we
sorry.
go into the stats, Ms. Marie, I just
Mhm.
want to say we do mention this information about modeling and setting household rules and expectations around screen usage. And it is something that we're going to delve into a lot more next week, as well as in week 4. Week 3 is all about digital citizenship. So we're going to be looking at how to stay safe online, risk prevention, cyberbullying. So we're going to give a lot of practical tools and just educate you on the
Yep.
digital literacy then. And then in week 4, we're going to be looking at having a strong relationship with your child. So just as Miss Anne Marie said,
Yeah.
when you build a strong relationship, your child is going to be more receptive to the feedback that you give them. So think about it this way. If you have a good relationship with your boss and your boss says to you, "Hey, I would love to see you do this differently," you're gonna be a lot more receptive to that and
Yeah.
accepting and realize like, hey, my boss has my best interest at heart and they want to see me do well, which is why they're telling me to do something differently or change my approach, right? So we're really going to be looking at that relationship and about how to establish trust, use empathy, and really connect with your child when you're encouraging them to change their social media usage and being safe online, right? So I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I think it's important in case somebody is not able to meet on for session 4. But one of the things we want to look at is when we're establishing trust with our kids, or we're and we're saying to them, hey, I recognize you didn't do, or you were doing something unsafe online, you don't want to have a big reaction. But again, tap into that trust you have with your child and reassure them that the reason you want to see them doing something differently is so that you can trust when they're using their social media that they're doing the right things, even when you're not looking, right? So again, that's why that relationship and building trust is so important. But again, we'll delve into that a bit more in week 4.
Yeah,
Now
but
we're
great
going
that
to
we're
look.
bringing it forward
Yes.
today
And
too.
I think that's what we'll do. We constantly kind of mention little nuggets here, but we will delve into it a bit more just so that we can ensure as parents or caregivers or whoever it is that's watching that you feel confident to use the strategies and have practical things that you can do.
Yeah. And one of the things, the features we're talking about today is the mental health aspect of it, or social media use and its impact on mental health. Now, Dr. Basson couldn't be here today, but this information has been taken from a recent partnership we had with her. And she is a clinician that's connected with the Alex Panton Foundation. She also works at the HSA also. And so she's a great resource in and of herself, Alex Panton Foundation also. And so we wanted to share some of the data she recently shared in a presentation she partnered with us on. And so I'll just pinpoint it out. So she talked about excessive smartphone and tablet use, that it is linked to anxiety, depression, poor sleep quality in children and adolescents. So we do see where children are allowed to take their phones, their smartphones, their tablets, their TV might be in their room also. And so this practice, it does create, even if a parent says, look, the rule is that we turn all these things off and we go to bed, the fact that the phone or the tablet remains in the child or teen's room, it definitely creates temptation. So having a rule where no gadgets and no screens are allowed in personal bedrooms is great. And it's not just good for their sleep, which obviously good sleep impacts on our mental health and our well-being, but also from a parenting aspect, we're able to supervise better when we know that these things are within our direct in our person, or they're kept in the living spaces where all persons are allowed to be at any time, right? So there's that aspect of it. She also shared that the King's College London found that teens with high phone use are twice as likely to have anxiety. They're 3 times more likely to experience depression, linking with higher levels of insomnia. So this again goes back to what's the parent in control of? You're definitely in control of how accessible are these things to your child? How, at what age are we allowed to bring that into the space? Are we just giving things away, or are we creating guidelines and rules around the way in which we use these things? And we'll talk a little bit, like Ms. Amber said, going forward in future sessions, and we'll make recommendations, but you as the parent get to decide what that looks like for you, right? 81% of girls in the UK between 7 and 21 have experienced some form of threatening or upsetting behavior online. So we know that bullying takes place. We know that bullying incredibly impacts on a young person's well-being. And this is about girls, but girls are more likely to report on bullying, as we know from the NDC local survey that was done. We see that girls are more likely to report on bullying actually taking place than boys. Not to say that it's not happening for boys, but there may be, due to gender stereotypes and things like that, the way cultures are, that boys maybe feel less comfortable in reporting, right? Sexual crimes also are committed against children online, and that has risen by 400% since 2013. So a huge increase in that. It is a way definitely for predators to gain access to children. We know too that children are using games like Roblox and other online games that really put them in connection with adults. And again, parents not just not knowing simply what that platform's about and who has access to them and how are they able to engage with adults. Just the fact that we might not know puts them in danger. So learning, not just giving free rein, definitely going on to sites like Miss Amber shared with us last week on Common Sense Media, reviewing those parental guides that talk about the nature of these games. They don't just give ratings of these games, but they actually go into specifics. So definitely education on a parent's perspective is key. The more we know, the more we're allowed or able to create goals and create rules and limitations because we know what's going on. We have that information. We're armed and empowered with that. And it also shows that the first generation to grow up with smartphones, they're now adults. So data shows that the younger they got their first smartphone, the worse their mental health is today. So this is information that's important. How young are we giving over things to our children? That's important to think about. But of course, we're here today with parents that have teens potentially, and that gate has already been open, right? So, but this is information for you to be aware of and to know. She went on to talk specifically about TikTok and character AI. So we even see people making online or artificial relationships, I believe the term is. There's 2/3 of American teenagers who use TikTok, and the average time a day is at least 80 minutes a day. So we know that's an exorbitant amount of time, definitely to receive small form content too. And you can almost, I don't know if anyone has ever done that where they've actually stayed on TikTok for a very long time, but you can almost feel the chemical reaction that's taking place within your brain and your body. And paying attention to that as an adult, we're able to go, oh, this is really making me feel funny. I need to come out of this now. We might have that awareness, but a teenager will likely not, right? And so they'll just kind of spiral into that terrible feeling that comes across. Now, with TikTok too, in particular, it reveals that there's a huge generational gap. We know that much younger generations are using it opposed to their parents and their grandparents, right? And if we are using it, we might be using it more in a brief way. We might be following someone specifically. We might be going on there almost like a search engine just to find out certain key information and then coming out. But again, that depends. Also says that TikTok shows content aligned with previous interactions. So you, even if you just watch, all of a sudden you're watching something else and you're down that rabbit hole. The algorithm is definitely very smartly put together, and it's constantly pushing content your children's way. There's even content around eating disorders and self-harm and body image issues. Within minutes of them engaging with related content. And you can read a bit more about this at the Center of Countering Digital Hate 2022 and the Wall Street Journal 2021.
Anne-Marie, before we continue, so this was something that piqued my interest when Dr. Bassan was speaking about it. And just in case no one knows how algorithms work, social media algorithms show you posts that will keep the user engaged. So an example would be if I watch a video of a dog and I watch the full video, then it's going to show me more videos of dogs, right? So some of these trigger topics like eating disorders and self-harm and body image, it's interesting to learn about them, of course, but the more that your teenager watches it, the more that topic is going to come up. And it may not necessarily be a video that it's an educational one, but it may be one that's encouraging it, right? So we just want to be mindful of how algorithms work, because the reality is, in order to change your algorithm, you have to be very intentional about searching for different things, positive things, right? So that's one of the things we'll talk about in a bit more detail next in session 4 about encouraging positive usage and just tapping into your relationship with your child and your sphere of influence that you have. But I just wanted to kind of discuss that a bit more.
Yeah. And so like Ms. Amber mentions, it really creates this, what they call echo chamber of kind of reinforcing that harmful or even problematic content into that child's life, and it could potentially exacerbate pre-existing mental health conditions, also like anxiety, depression, self-harm, and body dysmorphia, which is becoming increasingly common.
Before we move on, Miss Anne-Marie, I think one of the important topics to talk about, and what I would love to hear from is our attendees or anyone who's watching on YouTube, but I would love for us to talk about some of the warning signs that we can look at when it comes to mental health problems. So just 1 minute, let us just pop into the question and answer box or comment section. What are some warning signs of mental health problems with teens?
So essentially, what are we noticing, right, in terms of behavior, or a change in conversation from our child? What could be going on there that could potentially indicate to us that something's wrong? So those red flags.
So what we have here, mood changes after being online. So you may see a change in your child's mood. Maybe they went from being super happy to now they may just be kind of like blah. Withdrawal from family or friends in real life. Um, it could be an obsession with constantly checking the phone, checking for notifications that are kind of like showing an addictiveness. It could be a decline in performance that could be in school or maybe in extracurriculars, hobbies, or sports that they once used to like. We even spoke about this in the slide about positives and negatives, but again, you may see a loss of sleep or even a combination of a number of these things. Um, we may see anxiety about being away from their phone, obsessing over their image in photos, and you may even hear that negative self-talk coming out and comparing themselves to people they see online. Um, Maybe you could see an unwillingness, or maybe your teen is just unwilling to talk about, things that happen when they're online. They just don't want to talk about any of their usage online at all. Frequent headaches and decline in eyesight or reduced physical activity, weight gain, that sort of stuff. I think those are just a few, but definitely if we were to talk about them, we could identify quite a lot. We have a comment just saying needing the phone or tablet as a first item for the morning. So yes, that is a very common one. It's like it's very habitual and you're very dependent on it. Even for me as an adult, I feel like I have to check my phone as soon as I wake up in the morning, and I had to make a concerted effort to not just grab for the phone. I need to go and do different things before I just can't just log on. So
And
yeah,
I would add to that too, Miss Amber, is that if we as the parent have control over the phone or the tablet, so they haven't obviously gone to sleep with it and it's not allowed to be in their room, and they're coming to us asking for it, this is a great opportunity to potentially shift to a new habit. Well, let's go outside and touch grass, so to speak, first, right? There's an expert. He's not able to join us for this workshop, but he mentioned, and he's into cybersecurity. He's constantly on his phone, constantly on computers. He can build a computer. And so tech is looked at definitely positively because it's how he has a job, and it's what his interest is, and it's what he encourages from his children also. But it's about secure and safe use and making sure that your well-being is taken care of too. So it's not the first thing he does when he gets up. He actually makes a point of him and his son going outside, practicing in getting that vitamin D from the sun. And there's information about circadian rhythms and how you putting your bare feet on the grass or on ground on the earth is very good for you. They do breathing exercises. there's a whole exercise that he'll do, but very quickly, because of course our morning routines have to go quite quickly. We gotta, pack up our lunch and get ready and get on the road, right? But thinking about how do we shift, if this is a current habit that we have, to a healthier habit, and creating that with our child, a new family routine can be really, really important. But this is definitely a warning sign, as Miss Amber has indicated. So great. Thank you so much for getting involved too.
Yeah. And so the next slide is it's a warning from the Surgeon General. He's just warning on dangers to mental health.
For decades, there's been that Surgeon General's warning on packs of cigarettes. But this morning, for the first time, a new warning about something else: social media and what it means for kids' mental health. Why now for this advisory?
We're issuing this advisory to sound the alarm.
Surgeon General Vivek Murthy says there's not enough evidence to show social media platforms are safe enough for kids and teens.
We see rates of depression and anxiety and suicide and loneliness going up among young people. And I'm concerned that social media is an important driver of that youth mental health crisis. This is the defining public health issue of our time, youth mental health.
Research shows 95% of teens are on social media. More than a third say they're on constantly. And teens spend an average of 3.5 hours each day on these kinds of apps, something research shows can double the risk of experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety.
The other day, my daughter came up to my wife and I and asked us if she could post a picture on social media.
How old is she?
My daughter is 5 years old. She's actually in preschool, but she's been hearing about this from her friends.
All of the big platforms require users to be at least 13 years old to create accounts, but nearly 40% of kids ages 8 to 12 say they've used social media too. Tech expert Max Stossel sees it in the conversations he's had in the past 6 years with more than 100,000 students, parents, and teachers.
When I started doing this work, I was getting the question, is 16 too young to give my kid a smartphone? Now I'm getting the question, is like 3rd grade too young to give my kid a smartphone?
Stossel recommends 14, but ultimately the right age may be different for different families. You are almost certain to get pushback from tech companies who say they're trying to protect kids. They have age limits in place.
I appreciate that the technology companies have taken some steps to try to keep kids safe, but it hasn't been nearly enough.
The Surgeon General thinks Congress can and should do more to regulate social media companies, the same way safety standards are in place for car seats, for example. And at home, the advisory recommends creating a family media plan together, implementing tech-free zones like at mealtimes, and partnering with other parents with similar philosophies for support.
What's at stake here is our kids and their future, plain and simple.
Here's the thing. The Surgeon General's advisory acknowledges there are good things about teens being on social media, the ability to connect, to have friendships, to find support. We've reached out to the big social media platforms on this, waiting to hear back, but many of them have put some safety precautions in place. Meta, for example, prompts teens to take breaks and has a family center and guides to help people use the platform. It really is a debate for each family. If you're wondering, okay, what is the Surgeon General doing? He tells me that he and his wife plan to wait until their kids are out of middle school to get on those apps. Savannah.
It really is the issue of our time. We think about the Surgeon General and the warning about smoking in the 80s. And this, there's a thread here about a great public health issue that the Surgeon General is weighing in on that we all need to pay attention to. Holly, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every.
All right. So I think it'd be a good time to also open it up. Is that shocking to anyone what they've heard? That even the Surgeon General, who puts these warnings on things like cigarettes, thinks there needs to be a warning in place on social media apps. Is that shocking? Is that interesting? What are people thinking? What's your reaction to that? Because I remember the first time I heard that, I was quite impressed and pleasantly surprised that we've gotten to that place now. Miss Amber, what were your initial reactions when you heard that?
I think it really hit home to me the implications of the usage, right? Because you just think, oh, this can't be harmful. This can't be that serious.
That's
right?
bad. Yeah.
It can't be. But then when the Surgeon General issues such a warning, and it's like to that extent, you really have to second guess and or question yourself and think like, wow, this really has some long-term serious implications, right?
Yeah. So we have a comment here that was very shocking, and it is, and I think the social media use in particular, it's become a public health issue, right? Because like Miss Amber and I have been saying, like we're on there, adults are on there, right? We do have our brain development there where we can potentially take great steps to protect ourselves, but our young people do not, as we talked about last week in terms of teens' brain development. It's very much about risk taking, getting that dopamine, right? That's the way they are right now in terms of their development. So certainly it's something that I think really highlights how important it is and how this is a public health issue now.
I think what's shocking for me or what concerns me is that it's the fact that it can be used for good, right? And I think that's just anything in life, like even if you think about eating sugar or salt, like it can be good, right? You need to have a certain sodium level in your body to survive, but too much of anything is bad for you. And I think of it in the same exact way. It can be for good. I mean, when you think about the warning on the cigarette packet, I can't tell you that there's anything really good about having a cigarette apart from maybe it might in the short term reduce like an anxiety level or you feel a little better, but long term like cigarettes are bad for you. And when you think about him comparing it to the warning on a cigarette packet, you realize like, yeah, social media can be for educational purposes if you're actively using it, but the reality is too much of anything can be bad for you, right? And I think it's very, very important. And that's kind of, the message that we're pushing in today's session is it's all about moderation and having a balanced approach.
And
so now
go ahead.
So now what we're going to do is look at teens, their perspective on how social media impacts their lives.
We're back with more of our special event, Kids in Crisis Screen Time. And it is time to hear from the kids themselves.
Yeah, how do they feel about their devices and the time they spend on them? NBC's Kate Snow is here with that part of the story. Hi, Kate.
Hi, good morning, guys. By the age of 15, 86% of kids have a smartphone, according to Common Sense Media. And the U.S. Surgeon General says 95% of teens, 13 to 17, are using social media. There are a lot of positives, right? Connecting with friends, for example, but there are also some very real risks. 21-year-old Sophie Chev clearly remembers the moment she joined social media. It was the day of her 10th birthday party.
I was someone that grew up pretty heavily bullied and someone that struggled to fit in socially. So when my peers told me that there was this app that they were downloading to stay connected to each other, to expand their social life, I thought that if I downloaded it, it would help me fit in too.
She downloaded Instagram and followed a few other students. But Sophie says when she turned to the Explore page, she saw content from accounts she didn't follow. And when she started clicking on posts about models and weight loss, she says it took a turn.
It went from swap out a candy bar for a carrot to this is how to hide your food, how to avoid eating completely.
Sophie says the content helped lead to her eating disorder. She was hospitalized 13 times, starting at the age of 15, when her doctor delivered this dire warning.
He looked me in the eyes and said, the insurance called and asked for your prognosis. And I had to tell them that you are going to die in the next couple of weeks. Your heart, liver, kidneys, they're all failing.
Sophie made major changes in her life, and she's in a healthier place now, going to therapy and taking a 2-year break from social media. And her story is not unique. When asked about the impact of social media on their body image, 46% of teens 13 to 17 said that social media makes them feel worse. Back in May, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a warning, calling the youth mental health crisis the defining public health issue of our time.
We see rates of depression and anxiety and suicide and loneliness going up among young people. And I'm concerned that social media is an important driver of that.
The Surgeon General points to 2019 research finding teens who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk for mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And a lot of American teens are spending more time than that. A poll this month found just over half of teens say they're spending at least 4 hours a day on social media apps.
Favorite app?
I'd probably say like TikTok.
TikTok.
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram.
Ah, we have a divide.
I sat down with 15-year-old Elizabeth Kreitzberg, 13-year-old Josiah McLean Long, 16-year-old Megan Finichel, and 17-year-old Eric Woodbury at their school outside New York City to learn about their own social media use.
Josiah, what does it look like when you start looking at TikTok?
When I'm looking at TikTok, like, it's just so many funny videos and I just keep scrolling.
I think, like, when I'm scrolling, I'm just forgetting and just avoiding everything else in my life.
I watch TikTok, like, to fall asleep.
These teens say they don't use filters to change their appearance when they post on social media, but they certainly see a lot of that.
What about your friends? Do your friends use filters?
I have one friend. She uses a filter on every single photo, every single video. I don't know what she looks like for real anymore. I haven't seen her in a long time.
How much of your mental health do you think is tied to using the phone or screens? Do you see a connection there or not?
Not so much now, but definitely like when I was younger, like 2 years ago, I was more impressionable to like what I'd see. And I was definitely more down on myself then.
What were you seeing?
People like with filters or like people with the unimaginable bodies that are all fake.
Perfect.
All fake and perfect. And it's like, why can't that be me, you know?
Most of their parents follow them on social media.
My mom does send me a lot of TikToks. My dad, like, Insta Reels and stuff. Like, it's mostly, like, funny stuff.
They also tell me they've taken steps to have a healthier relationship with their phones. Megan says last school year she would sneak her phone into her room at night. This year her parents make her literally hand it over at 9:30.
My work wasn't getting done. I wasn't getting good sleep because I was scrolling. Because it seems like scrolling at night is the only free time we have. That's what it feels like anyway. But I guess now that they take my phone, I'm getting much better sleep.
As for Sophie, she's now a sophomore at Stanford and a mental health advocate, meeting with President Biden at the White House last year. And while she's back on social media, she says her relationship with it is different.
Social media now is a place of learning, but it is a place where I have to be able to make informed decisions in order to protect myself and to protect that 10-year-old Sophie every single day.
So we can pause the video there for now and we can play more of it later, but I'd love to hear our participants' reactions to that. Does any of that sound familiar? Has anyone had connections with persons that they know it's really impacted them? And of course, this is live on YouTube, so anything you feel comfortable saying publicly. And we can avoid names, things like that. I wonder, for you, Miss Amber, what were your thoughts?
Sorry, I just realized my camera wasn't on. I think it's just shocking to the point where you're experiencing health, like physical health challenges. Like it's, again, what's similar to the last video is just showing the severity and how serious the issue is, right?
Absolutely.
I think it's very important.
Nice
I think it's very important to recognize, like, in what they shared is that the break was very essential. Like,
yes, the breakaway.
Yeah, and thankfully, I mean, it's unfortunate that it took going to that, having to suffer like physical consequences is the point where she realized, okay, I had to take my 2-year break from social media. But I think it's very important for us as parents and caregivers to recognize that before it gets to that point, we definitely need to encourage the breaks, the regular breaks, right? Because it doesn't even have to be this long-term break, but just the regular frequent breaks, and to break the dependency on it, right?
I do think too, they talked, at least the girls in the video, a lot about body dysmorphia, the way they view themselves, and kind of what they call these impossible bodies.
Perfect bodies, right?
Perfect, right? And so the way in which us as the parent also kind of talks about things, talks about themselves, little comments that we could make like, oh God, I've gotten so fat, or oh, I look stupid in that, or these sort of kind of derogatory things. We have to be so careful because our little ones pick up on that and they could potentially start, right? They are literally primed to mirror us and become us to a certain extent, right? So when our little girls, especially, are seeing their mothers putting on makeup, they want to do it too. They want to play dress up. And so the way in which we talk about ourselves, our body, is really, really important too. And we can bring this up just as this reporter is talking to the teens about their experiences. Parents, we should be able to have this relationship where we talk to them. Hey, what are you seeing? What's going on? And it could be in a very organic way while they're on the phone, on social media. Having a little conversation with them on a regular basis is really, really important because it sounds like, especially for the young lady that was going through those disorders and those really health issues to the point where she nearly died, that could have been potentially prevented if it was caught. And so Amber bringing up those red flags and having that engagement with your child is so, so essential.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit more about how we can support our teens. Again, we're using the American Psychological Association content. Definitely recommend parents to continue their own research outside of this. Obviously, we're with you for just a brief period. So please go on to American Psychological Association. And even in the news report we just heard, they used information from Common Sense Media. That could be your top resource as a parent. It's very, very useful.
We'll also list them at the end of this presentation.
It's up to us as adults to help kids and teens remember again and again to stop the comparison trap as it results in unhealthy feelings about their own bodies, social lives, and self-esteem. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Prinstein, APA's Chief Science Officer, here to give you some advice on how to help your kids and teens avoid the harms that can come from making comparisons on social media. It's easy for teens to become critical about how they stack up to others on social media. And in most cases, it results in teens feeling bad about their own bodies, their social lives, or themselves. It's natural to compare ourselves with others, and it's also easy to make errors based on what we see online. When you see someone seemingly perfect on social, do you feel a little self-conscious or envious? Or do you immediately start recognizing the ways that the post might be curated or filtered? Maybe just a computer-generated image of a person who doesn't even exist. Kids and teens are especially likely to feel self-conscious, and maybe even more influenced by what they see on social than adults. That's because a natural part of adolescent psychological development is to form an identity based on how they are the same or different from adults and from their peers. Social media has made this hard, so it's up to us to help teens remember again and again to stop the comparison trap. Here are 5 tips. Number 1, social media posts usually reflect our best curated selves, which is far from our real lives. Number 2, social media posts can be created, altered, or manipulated to not reflect reality. Number 3, many social media profiles are developed by bots or computers and don't even represent a real person. Number 4, we're used to living in an offline world, and our brains do amazing jobs making us believe what we see. But on social media, this no longer applies. So it takes practice to remind ourselves every day to question, doubt, and verify what we see. Number 5, ask your child or teen whether social media makes them feel better about themselves or worse after they've used it, and help them feel supported if they want to take a break or get together with peers face-to-face instead. I hope this helps. For more information, please go to apa.org.
Okay. And any thoughts about that? Even just how easy or how hard is it to connect with your child about these tips even? Amber, what did it make you
I
think
love,
about?
so yeah, I was saying I love that it's just like short, a short practical list that we
Mhm.
can action. It's not overwhelming, which I think is very important because we have to start small, right?
Mhm.
It could be, like we said, the everyday conversations. It's not something that we just have one big talk about, but it can be the everyday conversations on the car ride to school and just giving that feedback on, I realize that you've been using your phone late at night when our agreement in our family, it's agreed that we're going to keep the devices in the kitchen when it's time for bed, right? So I think it's just about constantly having the conversation. And I love that this is short and easy to digest. Just as Ms. Anne-Marie said, though, we will have a slide at the end where we can provide more resources because these were just 4
Yeah.
tips here. And we have a lot more that could be like appropriate for your family dynamic, right? And we will delve into that next session a lot more. Family meetings, establishing time limits, using technology to your advantage, creating a schedule. When is the right time to use screens? When is the wrong time to use screens? But I think all of that comes into play when we talk about comparing themselves to others on social media. Again, having that balanced approach, encouraging alternative interests, setting a good example, as Ms. Amory just said, following the last one, not falling into that negative self-talk. It might be something that we don't obviously we don't intend to do it, but we have to catch ourselves and intend to do differently, right?
Yeah.
Just
And
make a
at
concerted
present, it really is down to the individual family and the parent what we decide is best for our families. But I also wanted to highlight, in addition to, so the US has their Surgeon General announce what he would like to see in terms of social media apps. But what are other countries saying? So in Australia, they've announced a ban on social media apps for under 16-year-olds. The European Union implemented or proposed bans on smartphones in schools, and France they banned mobile phones in primary and middle schools to encourage more social interactions. In the US, the California statewide ban in schools called for device-free dinner. That was launched. And in UK, smart-free childhood digital detox initiatives and public health campaigns led by the NHS and digital safety groups took place. So obviously there's platforms like ours where we're aiming to educate parents so that we make the most informed, best decisions for our individual families. But it'd be really nice that we, as the parent, we can advocate within, say, our children's schools. We can talk to school officials. We can say, I don't allow my child to go in with a phone. However, there's access. There's other children that are using it. It is distracting them from their schoolwork. Yes, you may allow it so that parents and children can stay in contact. However, this is what's happening, right? Children, if they have their phone, there is just that likelihood that they're going to use it and they're going to use it inappropriately. So it's important. In an earlier video, a young lady said, if my parents didn't take my phone away from me at night, I would continue to scroll and I would continue, my schoolwork would continue to deteriorate, and she had been falling behind her grades. So we know that these things impact on our mental health, our identity, and of course, our schoolwork. We have a question here.
question. So a person logged on asked, the schools in Cayman still prohibit the use of phones? No, as far to my knowledge, we work very frequently in the public schools, and they do allow phones, I guess, for kids to contact their parents if needed. As far as I know, a lot of kids have access to the school Wi-Fi as well, so it is a major distraction. I'm very pleased that one of the new schools that has been established, one of the new high schools, Cleverfish, and they've been very vocal about it on the news when they had their opening and everything, that they're a screen-free school or phone-free school at least. I don't know if it's all screens, but definitely a phone-free school. So their students are not allowed to bring in their phones. And I think it is a major distraction. So I'm really happy that we're moving in the right direction there. And I would love to see that happening in other schools. And I think it's quite hard to manage in like the bigger schools like John Gray. The population is massive, right? 1,500. The population is quite massive. But I do think, and one of the big things that I'm going to be talking about next week is using technology to our advantage. So all of these devices that we have, whether it's the PS5, the little game, the portable gaming device like the Nintendo Switch or whatever, the phones, the tablets, the computers, they all have built-in screen management systems, right? And I would love to see that even in like schools, we can use technology to kind of block phone usage, because I know it does exist. But or even just like withholding the Wi-Fi, regularly changing the Wi-Fi password if somebody has it, it might be inconvenient to staff, but I think it's easier to replace or change the password and advise staff of the change than having kids like distracted at school and not being able to focus and learn, right? So yeah, to answer the question, as far as I know, schools still they allow phones. Yeah.
And a lot of, and to your point about Cleverfish, and it's not that they're well informed, because they also use technology quite well. They even have AI available, AI tools that support their teachers in grading and different things to that effect. So they're making well-informed decisions. And so we're coming near to the end in terms of time. And so I want to open up a poll quickly just to talk about specifically with your family. What does healthy social media use look like? So you're just finishing, it's like a fill in the blank. Healthy social media use for our family looks like. So coming up with that kind of conscious thought, because we're talking about it very generally, what it looks like for other families potentially, but what does this look like for you and your family? Okay, so the poll is live.
I know that we're short on time, but healthy social media use for our family looks like uninterrupted dinners. It looks like having meaningful conversations without the distraction of the screen.
Very good. Yeah, it looks like having time limits. It looks like having screen-free zones, or screen-free times. It looks like healthy sleep hygiene, where there's nothing in the bedrooms to that effect at any point.
Even just thinking about what one of the videos said, the girl said she would use TikTok to go to sleep. you know?
And that, again, very unhealthy, messing with your body's natural development of melatonin. And so we've had a few answers. Are you able to see the responses, Miss Amber?
Yes. So it says transparent. I have transparent use, not secretive use of social media. That is a big one. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Because again, just like I said earlier, that's going into the trust that you've established with your child. I've provided you or gifted you or whatever a phone because I trust you to use it in the manner that you should be, right? So it should just be not any secretive use of social media. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about next week too, is that kids nowadays have what you call like, I can't remember the exact term. I've looked it up and I have it on my list for next week, but it's kind of like fake profiles or like they'll have their main
like
profile.
a burner. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they call it, I think it's kind of like a dump profile or something, or meme profile, but I'll get the exact terminology. But yes, making sure that their usage, they're being responsible digital citizens and they're not being secretive about what they're doing. Another answer said timed or kept to a normal schedule, and I think that is very important because you need to know when and how long you should be on the screen, and they ensure that it's not interrupting any of our need to do's, right? Or even want to do's, right? Because again, one of the warning signs I spoke about earlier is that if a teen is excessively using social media and it's now interfering with how they operate in real life, and it makes them lose the desire to do things that they need to do or want to do, like maybe sports or going out with friends in real life, then of course it can be very problematic. So I think it's very important to establish that schedule and keep it timed so that we're not overusing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I love the engagement. I love the comments. So yeah, and we already touched on what healthy social media looks like. And again, my key word for the day or for this session is balance.
Definitely. And because we're coming to the end, I'm going to launch the poll from now while I just give kind of closing statements. But we did bring up and provide the SMART Goals PDF last week. If you've been using it, great. If you'd like to get our individual feedback, or you want to touch base with us about what it says or what you're looking at, last week we really encouraged parents to just monitor their own usage, because of course how we use our gadgets, that definitely is the first role model for our children. So taking a look at how are we using it, putting apps on our phone that kind of can show us how much time, and usually in most phone settings it'll tell you how much time you're spending on each app. And then looking at your children, kind of really gathering that data of how much am I using, how much is our family using, and what do I really want it to look like, and what is a realistic goal, or smaller goals, short-term goals, before I get to the final one. So some people just go cold turkey, like I'm just taking a complete break from social media, or I'm, whatever the case is, but we live and we work with technology, so we're constantly interacting to some degree. So definitely having a think of what is realistic right now, what is achievable for me. And it's a family goal, right? I'm working towards my own, and I'm supporting my child towards theirs. We offer, as I said earlier, individual parent coaching, consultations. It's really just a chat to hear about what you'd like to work on, what you'd like to see your family looking like in terms of healthy, in this situation, screen use or social media use. But it can be any sort of parenting issue you feel, or you want to be proactive and prevent a potential issue from arising. That's what we're here for. Use the QR code on your screen now to scan, and we're very happy to have those parent sessions with you, as well as just for you to stay up to date with our WhatsApp channel. We are constantly putting out parenting tips and evidence-based information, as well as just what's coming next, or events that are coming up. We have Miss Amber and our other lovely colleagues providing the domestic abuse intervention training program that is literally taking place next week. And so you will find information about that there on our WhatsApp channel. And we're also celebrating International Men's Day, which was yesterday, but we continue to honor that throughout this month. So you'll find information about that too.
And then we are also advertising some of our upcoming programs in the new year. Our SNAP program, our Stop Now and Plan program, is our clinical program that we run here. It's 13 weeks long. So we're going to be starting intake from now around the Christmas season, so we can be prepared to start in January. And that's a wonderful program for any parents of kids between the ages of 6 to 11 who are experiencing emotional or behavioral challenges. But yes, lots of information about our upcoming programs. As I mentioned before, the resources that we've used throughout, or made mention to throughout this session, are listed here on the screen. The Childmind Institute is amazing. That's actually who created our SNAP program. APA, the American Psychological Association, they have a ton of resources. The Monique Burr Foundation, Pew Research Center, Gottman Institute, Common Sense Media, which we spoke to. It's an amazing resource that explains how these social media platforms work, gives guidance to us on what can happen on them, what certain tools on the apps are used for, or what you can do on the app. And then you can also check games, movies, shows, and to see like how appropriate they are for your teenager or inappropriate. So there's a ton of resources used online, and we'll continue to speak to them as we work through the workshop. Next week, we're going to be covering the topic of digital citizenship, online safety. We're going to be looking at cyberbullying and risk prevention. So next week, when you meet with us, we're going to be looking at or identifying the online risks. We're going to be familiarizing you with some key terminologies that, what are the kids saying nowadays that we may have no idea what that is about. We're going to learn to set some boundaries and establish a digital media plan. And we are also going to be talking about just critical thinking and having our kids establish red flags and looking at what online ethics looks like, right? So a lot to cover next week. As I said, we're going to be moving more into like the practical strategies, because session 1 and 2, we have identified what is the problem. It affects brain development. It can impact our mental health and how we identify our self-esteem and just how we view ourselves. But next week, we're really going to be looking into what can we do about it. So thank you so much, everyone, for your wonderful engagement today. We hope you benefited from today's session, and we can't wait to have you log on next week. That's it for today.
We'll see you. Thank you.